talk 30 minutes maybe, and then we'll let you go and enjoy the party this evening. But thank you, Alex, for the introduction. This is my first time in Bulgaria, so I've been here for the last few days. It's a really beautiful city, so thank you to Bulgaria Life so much for inviting me along. Yeah, I hope you've enjoyed today so far. I've got a full day tomorrow as well. Unfortunately, I won't be here, but I've really enjoyed today's sessions, and it's been really great to kind of get completely different perspectives on the industry, the web and tech industry, from your CSS design. It's pretty cool, right, that we're all here. So that's just a little FYI. So yes, my name is Lara. I'm a designer. I make things. I'm a design thinker. I think about design and design things through thinking. I work at IBM Design, so I'm based in Dublin, in Ireland, and I work with a team that are based in Austin, and then a lot of IBM based in Europe. So, if you do want to follow me on Twitter, you can follow me at Lara_Hanlon. So, my talk today is going to be about great design facilitation builds better design solutions. A bit of a mouthful of a title, but it's not going to be too complicated, I don't think so anyway. But really, at the core of this, what I'm really going to discuss is the idea of design facilitation, okay? And what does that mean, and how is that relevant maybe to you as individuals, or on a team if you're working with designers, or in your organization, and why is design facilitation important? But in order for me to get through all of this, I'm going to break down my keynote into kind of three, I guess, chapters, I'll call them. And the first chapter, I'm going to look at design. Okay, so very high level, kind of what is design, some methodologies around design, what is the role of the designer, and how are companies embracing design. And then I'm going to move on and I'm going to look at facilitation, okay? So again, what's a facilitator? Why are they significant in the roles that they play? What are some facilitator tools? And then what happens when you put design and facilitation together, right? Hopefully some magic happens, right? But we'll get to that point by walking through design and facilitation. Okay? So the first thing, we'll get stuck into design, all right? I've been kind of watching the room. It's been asked a few times today how many people are designers, right? And there's quite a few people here, but I can guarantee you that most of you are probably working with designers if you're not designers, right? Or you're coming across people like UX designers, visual designers. Fabio gave a great presentation there about how designers make things, right? So, and it is a kind of, it's a buzzword, it's a hot topic. Design is wanted and needed rapidly, right? Especially in the web and tech industry. So really, design, right? Could be this, could be graphics. Some of you, when you hear the word design, you might think of graphic design. I know for myself, I have I'm formally trained as a graphic designer, visual communicator. So I very much come from a background of posters, books, film titles, motion graphics, and that is design. This is also design, fashion, right? The clothes that we all wear, that's also a discipline of design. And then we also have product design, okay? So beautiful iPhones, smartphones, that's also an example of design, right? Now, there's lots more design out there as well, but I guess these three types of design, they're very aesthetically pleasing, right? They're all about the look and feel. They make you want to wear it, they make you want to interact with it, touch it, feel it, okay? But it's also about the aesthetics. But actually, design is not just what it looks like. Design is also how it works, okay? And to some people not really working in the design discipline, sometimes it can just be about how it looks, and there's maybe a lack of understanding of that design is actually how it works as well. So this quote, Steve Jobs quote, I had to put in Steve Jobs quote, especially if you're going to show some Apple products. But it really does summarize the value of design, that it's both, right? It's the look and the functionality. So if you think back to the graphics, the fashion, and the product design, that's all kind of how it looks. But then when we think about how it works, door handles, right? That's a piece of design. Somebody has designed door handles, how to get from one place to the next through a portal of sorts. But a door handle allows you to do that, right? So do you twist it? Do you push or pull it? Do you push it down? Do you pull it up? Door handles are designed for a specific use case, right? Mobile UX, interaction patterns as well as a form of design, okay? It's not necessarily about how it looks, but actually it's functionality. So when the smartphone did come along, somebody had to consider and think about and design those interactions and those patterns for how somebody actually uses that new device or that technology, okay? So this is very much about how things work as opposed to just how it looks, okay? Door handles are maybe a bit of both, okay? It's the look and feel, but also the functionality as well. So if you actually do a boring search on the word design, Oxford Dictionary will throw up this result, okay? So design is the purpose or planning that exists behind an action, fact, or object, okay? So again, yes, you'll find the definition that says it's about maybe patterns or how it looks, but it's also the purpose and planning, okay? It's the intent behind a thing, okay? And that could be an action, so it could be swipe left, swipe right, okay? It could be a fact or it could be an object, so whether it is a piece of clothing or a product. It's actually design is the planning and the thought that goes into that, okay? So that's just a little bit of a kind of, design 101 kind of tutorial. But ultimately, good design is made up of those two pieces, okay? Form, so the formal aspects, what it looks like, plus the functionality. And then you've got great design, right? Not just good design, but great design. Because essentially, the formal aspects will make somebody want to use your software or experience your product or wear your piece of clothes. And the functionality actually provides that experience, okay? And then that's great design. So what are some maybe design methodologies or practices or frameworks? But I'm going to go through to just really, really quickly. There are many, many, many forms of design methodologies or practices out there. But you could almost argue that you could, I guess, put them in two sort of high-level buckets. And the first one might look something like this, right? So how many of you are familiar with this kind of environment, post-it notes and whiteboards and collaboration? About a few people, not many hands. Okay, a few more. So this is actually a photo of our Dublin studio. We have a collaboration space where we, as designers, we get in there, but we collaborate with our developers, engineers, business analysts, around big, complex problems, right? Using just basic tools like Post-it notes and Sharpies. And what this really is actually a form of design thinking, okay? So this is problem solving from a kind of strategic level. So it's really identifying maybe some problem areas, coming up with some potential big ideas or solutions to that. And again, it's kind of, you're not really producing anything as such, except for maybe a concept or some research or some insights. And that's really design thinking, okay? A lot of process and strategy. And the other kind of type of design could be more like this, right? So many of you would be familiar with this kind of design. So wireframe sketches, high fidelity UI mock-ups, or interface for a mobile application. These are the more tangible kind of outputs of design, right? So this is more about design making. Again, we just heard a great presentation about designers being makers. I'm very much a design as a maker. I'm also a design thinker. Some people like to see themselves as one and not the other. And then there's many design thinkers out there who are not makers. But these are kind of, I guess, the two methods of design that you potentially could see yourself fit into. And the output is completely different whether you're making or you're design thinking. But essentially you're still invested in that planning or the kind of process and the intent behind the thing that you're actually executing on, right? So it's design thinking and design making. But in the context of this talk, I want to interpret design, right, as any method that solves a problem or a need with a new solution. Okay, so be open for interpretation. So whether you're working maybe in service design, product design, web design, graphic design, there's a lot of titles and disciplines out there. But really here, it's any method that solves a problem or need with a new solution, because ultimately, recognizing the need is the primary condition for design. So design is not art, okay? Design is not just design for the sake of it. Good design is not really because it's form plus function, right? Something might look beautiful, but if it doesn't work, it's not great design. It's pretty poor design. Generally, good design should answer a need or solve a problem. That need is a human-centered need, right? Somebody needs to do something. Someone needs to get from A to B, so a service might be designed to get that person from one location to the other. So why then is design important to the web and tech industry? Well, there's a couple of reasons. First of all, user experience. Okay, so we've all heard of the term user experience. UX is a role that I see continually growing on my LinkedIn profile. Friends who are strategists or business analysts or developers and now UX designers. It's really interesting to kind of watch that change. But actually what design really is doing is delivering great user experience, okay? And design helps the web and tech industry get to that point. Design, we heard about it earlier, allows people to create accessible solutions, allows people to actually interact with your product or service, designed for people, right? So it's universally accessible, has desirable qualities. It makes you want to look at it. It makes you want to touch it, right? So that's a huge aspect. If you can't attract somebody to whatever it is, whether it's your website or your application, because it's not desirable, well then even if it functions perfectly, you never know because that client or that customer is gone, right? Creates business impact. So again, if you think about design thinking, that kind of framework is being used across the globe in organizations, excuse me, including IBM, but many others. And it's been around really in use in business since the early 90s. And it actually really drives like real value throughout a business, okay, for customers and for end users. If you're working in the banking industry or consultancy, you'll hear digital transformation being tossed around a lot. Design helps and enables businesses to deliver digital transformation to their clients. Design is delightful. And again, it's sustainable, or at least it can allow you to create a future that is sustainable. Because again, if we think back to the definition of design, it's the planning, it's the intent behind something. So if you're really thoughtful in your intent, hopefully you'll create something that's pretty sustainable. So if we take a look at John Maida's report, Design and Tech report this year, 2017, have any of you heard of John Maida? Okay, so he's a sort of personal hero of mine. He's an incredible person. He works across three main industries: business, design, and technology, right? And he tries to bridge the gap between those three kind of disciplines or domains, really. And he's extremely knowledgeable in all of those domains. And he works, in the industry for many years, but over the last few years, he's been publishing this report called Design and Tech Report. And what he's doing here is he's looking at the landscape of design in technology and how tech companies or businesses are adapting design and reacting to design and designers. And it's fascinating, especially as a designer. Pretty early in my career, this is really encouraging for me. But this year, the Design Tech report was published just last month, I think. And one of the slides or findings in the report showcased global corporations that have invested or acquired design agencies in the last year. These are the really big names. Okay, so we know these companies, they've been around for a long, long time. And these companies are not all of the corporations that have acquired design agencies in the last year, but these are some of the biggest ones, most significant ones. So we've got Accenture, they acquired Fjord Design Agency. IBM, they built their own internal design division. Deloitte and EY, both consultancies, have actually, at firms, they've acquired many design agencies across the globe. Google, Wipro invested in Designit, initially started in Copenhagen, now expanding across the world. And why is this relevant? You might be thinking, oh well, okay, big companies have got loads of money and they can just go and do that, maybe because design is a buzzword, right, when everybody needs design. But I don't think that that's true. I think, yes, that might be part of it in some weird way, but actually design helps companies deliver human-centered experiences that matter, okay? So whether these companies really care about design, I don't know, that's arguable, that they do or they don't. But the reality is that designers, at the heart of it, good design is delivering a solution, an experience that is relevant and meaningful to the person at the other end using that, right? Because actually they're answering that need, okay, that basic human need or solving a problem. So that's essentially why companies are recognizing the value in design and making this huge investment, which is, again, quite powerful and quite significant in terms of where we are right now in the industry. Okay, so that's design. I'm going to park that. Okay, so chapter 1, we'll close that. And then we'll move over to facilitation. And we'll have a look at, what is facilitation, who are facilitators, who would consider themselves a facilitator if you've heard of the title? A couple of people, not too many, okay. So you may be a facilitator, but unknowingly. So to facilitate, what does that actually mean? Well, it comes from the word facil, to make easier, okay? So facilitator, they're found in many, many, many situations, but the role of a facilitator is to essentially work with a group of people to make their job or their lives a little bit easier. Generally, a facilitator is very knowledgeable in the space that they're facilitating. So if it's design, they understand design, but it could be in other areas and expertise as well. But they work with their team as a kind of neutral team member to reach kind of common objective or goal. So if you think about it, a team, might get together, and then the facilitator kind of sits in the middle and helps navigate conversations, coordinates effort between all of these team members to really reach a shared understanding. Where can I find a facilitator? Well, you can find them in army training, you can find them in business meetings, community gatherings, conflict resolutions, design collaboration, educational learning, sports training, strategic planning, in many, many, many situations and scenarios and environments. So facilitators, it's a role that is very common, especially in sports actually, and education. But I'm interested in design, okay, and we'll get to that point in a minute, but that might kind of maybe give you some sense of where facilitators can be found. But what do? So we talked a little bit about this, but they get a team together to achieve objectives, okay, effectively. They allow a team to ideate. They allow a team to come to a shared understanding, right? So to use a common kind of language and agree or disagree, but at least there's a shared understanding. They allow a team to gain alignment, which is really, really important, especially if they're working on kind of complex problems. They allow a team to plan. Facilitators are generally very good planners. They allow a team to co-create, right? Collaboration, very, very, very important, especially when you're working with a team of people. 5 ideas are better than 1 idea, 5 skill sets are better than 1 skill set, and the facilitator allows those skill sets and ideas to really kind of come together, okay? And then they allow teams to reflect. So it's very, very important that when you're working with a team of people, or with your customer, your client, your end users, it's really important that there's time to reflect on how things are going, how things went, and where you want to go at any given point. And facilitators allow teams to do that. And also, less meetings. So facilitators, the joy of facilitating a team is that you can cut out those long, boring conference calls that you have to do, or sitting in a meeting room for an hour when nobody really wants to be there. There's no clear agenda. Nobody comes out of it with anything productive, right? So this is also a little win for facilitators. Some characteristics of a good facilitator. So they need to be all of these things and more. So they need to be adaptive, amicable, attentive, collaborative, communicative, empathetic, open, passionate, and reflective. So I'm going to go through each one of these just in a little bit of detail, just so you can kind of understand, the type of person that is a facilitator, but also might resonate with you. So if you take a look, adaptive, right? It's important for a facilitator to be ready to adapt to new situations fast. So if you're working with a group of people are complex beings, okay? So if things go awry or wrong, or things need to change, or the business mandate has changed, facilitators need to be adaptive and ready to change in accordance with those new situations or demands. It's really important that a facilitator is friendly and approachable. If you're working with people, you don't want to come across as being the grumpy person hiding in the corner that nobody wants to approach or have a conversation with. It's really important that you're attentive, okay? This is really, really, really important. A good listener who pays attention to all participants. Again, if you want to get the best out of the people in the room, it's really important that you're paying attention. Collaborative, enjoys working with people. I mean, that's kind of self-explanatory. There's no point in being a facilitator with a group of people if you don't like people. So being communicative, a good storyteller helps facilitate situations. It allows you to kind of share stories, many of which could be success stories, that allows you to gain trust. So being a good storyteller is really important. This is the most important, I think, to have empathy, right, for other people, willing to see things from another person's perspective. I think that's just a really nice trait for any human being to have, but it's underrated and undervalued. A facilitator needs to be empathetic and patient, I guess. To be open to invite others to share their ideas, really, really important. And to be passionate, okay? So it's really important that you believe in what both you and your team are doing, or your company, right? So if you're going to facilitate and get the best out of those in the room, they're going to see right through you if you don't believe in that, if you're not passionate about the subject matter you're facilitating. And it's important that you're reflective as a facilitator. So we're critical about your own work, your team's work, and then you're learning from failure, okay? So again, if you're going to make progress, you've got to be able to reflect on what happened previously, whether it's successful or not, and then learn from that. So maybe that's you. Maybe you are all of these things and more, and you don't label yourself as a facilitator. I know for me, I was a natural facilitator. When I was in college, I was kind of just the person who would facilitate things, and now it's my job title, which kind of worked out to be okay. But maybe that's you, and what I would say to you is, if it is, and those things resonate with you, I would say actually bring that into your practice and into the work that you do on a daily basis, because it's really, really, really important, and it really does kind of help your team be more productive, right? So, went through design, kind of walked through facilitation, so we kind of got a little bit of a lesson in what design is and design methodologies, and then facilitation, high-level stuff. But what happens then if you bring design and facilitation together? Well, if we just recap really quickly, the first thing we looked at was design, right? And it delivers human-centered experiences that matter, okay? So, really important takeaway. And then the second thing is facilitation allows teams to reach a common objective effectively. So design delivers human-centered experiences that matter. Facilitation allows teams to reach a common objective effectively. See where we're going with that? So if you put those two things together, why facilitate design? Well, building products and services is a complex task. Okay? You get a lot of people in a room to deliver and ship a product or a service. Those people may be coming from accounting, they may be business analysts, they may be designers, from engineering, HR, legal, marketing, sales, the list is endless, okay? When you're working in an environment, in enterprise or on products and services, you require a lot of subject matter experts, okay? You can't do these things alone. When you put these people into a room, it becomes very, very complex. But actually, in this list here, design, that's what I'm kind of interested in. Why should we facilitate design above, engineering facilitation? Of course you should facilitate that. But my argument here is that design actually champions the end user, right? So they're really focused on what that experience is that you're going to deliver and ship to market. So who facilitates design? Well, if we go back to chapter 1 with design, you could be a design thinker, or you could be a design maker. So if you think again of the role of a facilitator, they're generally pretty knowledgeable, right, in the area that they're facilitating. So a design thinker, they may not be making the applications or creating any user interface, may not be a user experience designer, but they're thinking maybe about how to solve that problem. What are the core maybe pain points that their customers or end users are experiencing, and how can we actually make a difference by producing a better solution for that person at the other end. So that could be a design thinker or a design maker. Designer actually has a lot of similar kind of characteristics as a facilitator. They generally have a lot of empathy, good listeners for the most part. So a design facilitator could be a design thinker or a design maker. And for those of you who are neither here, I would say that if you work with somebody who is a designer or design thinker and who also happens to have these kind of characteristics as a facilitator, I would say embrace those people. They're too few, and also they bring a lot of value. And if you kind of nurture them and grow them and work with them, I think they would really add a lot more to your team and the work that you do. Some basic tools that a facilitator, a design facilitator at least, will have include post-its, right? Some markers, and an agenda, the most important of all. I think it's really important that when you get together with people, especially in a work environment, there's never enough time in the world, and you want to get the best out of those co-workers, right? So setting a clear agenda, that you know that if you have 1 hour, that you're going to get the most out of that time, and you're going to get the most out of those subject matter experts when you bring them together. So setting an agenda is really important, and that is one of their kind of outputs, but also a tool that a good design facilitator will have. And then the post-its and markers are really important, because actually facilitating a group of people, it's not about having a group of people coming together to just have a meeting. They have a clear objective that they want to reach. And a facilitator, using post-its and Sharpie markers, whatever it is that you have, it's really effective, because actually that way you can treat everybody pretty much as an equal, okay? And you're getting a very clear sense of where people are coming from. And then, it was mentioned earlier, this idea of having seniors and juniors. Sometimes when you get a group of people into a room, and that's the case, maybe the junior person, whether they're a designer or not, it doesn't matter, but the newbie in the room, they might have great ideas or contributions to make, but they may not feel confident because their executive or their manager is in the room. But actually, by giving somebody a marker and a post-it, everybody is pretty equal, right? And once that thought is up on the wall on a post-it, it doesn't matter who made the comment, right? So I think a facilitator needs to be aware of that and be able to facilitate that kind of action. So benefits of design facilitation, and why is it important? Well, again, it brings expertise to the table, okay? So when we do work in an environment like product tech, web, whatever it is that you're working on, it's very, very important that you have the right people in the room to make those decisions or contribute to those new ideas. So Facilitator is aware of that, and it's not just about facilitating design with designers, it's about bringing design and facilitating it with everybody. And on that note, it also gives designers a voice. Okay, so everybody wants to hire a designer, everybody wants to be a designer, it's kind of a thing. But actually, that's great and all, but then once you have design in a company, it's very, very important that they're not just left, these designers, at the end of a release cycle or just before something ships, right, to make something look pretty or, make something look appealing. It's actually, if you think about it, designers need to be at the beginning of those conversations, need to be upfront doing the design thinking, the strategic work, the planning, putting intent into the work that you're going to put out as a team. So it kind of gives designers a voice and places them at the table. Again, it's an effective use of time. So I made this point, design facilitation. It's generally an active sort of experience, and it's not so much about the meetings, right? So you're getting a lot out of it. And again, design facilitators, by facilitating design, you're championing the end user, so the person who's going to be experiencing what you ship, what you create. They're at the heart of everything that you're ultimately trying to achieve. Okay, so who's doing it out of the industry? Really quickly. Obviously, I'm working with IBM, one of the practices is IBM design thinking. What we do is we try to scale that around the enterprise. We try to get people to embrace this kind of human-centered approach to working with their peers, but also to deliver products and services. But in order to do that, we need people to facilitate and educate non-designers in this space. So we're actually building out a kind of core competency, core practice around facilitation. And this is a kind of common scenario, a photo of like a facilitator handing out post-it notes, getting ready for a workshop. And we kind of work in this sort of iterative loop where we're constantly observing, reflecting, and making with their team. And a facilitator is somebody who actually allows that to happen, right? Allows that kind of cycle to take place. Adaptive Path is also another company in the US who are acquired actually by Capital One, but they have an entire guide around design facilitation, and it's quite interesting. They say that it encompasses strategies that help facilitate productive and fulfilling workshops. So again, that word productive is really important there. And then this is just something that I came across in Dublin, in Ireland, that I was not part of, but I was pleasantly surprised to see this happening. Just last week there was, or March 25th, that's when it happened, there was an event on a symposium where designers from a few different studios got together and they were working with the government and with charity organisations, and this topic of facilitating design kept coming up in conversations, and these designers started to realise that actually the role that they were playing was less of maybe a designer and a maker, but actually was getting people to think almost like a designer, facilitating design in these conversations and coordinating that, right? So this kind of stuff is happening quite a lot. Cooper in the US as well, they offer training and they recognize that design facilitation can actually improve innovation or deliver and create better innovation across different organizations. So in short, just to kind of wrap up, design facilitation helps teams work better together to deliver better design solutions. Okay, and at the beginning of this, I talked about great design facilitation builds better design solutions. But what's a better design solution? Well, one, it enhances a person's experience, right? So the experience that you have with whether it is a product or a service, if it's something that's fundamental to your day-to-day activities, whether it's in work or your personal life, if that experience is terrible, but you still need to do it, it's not great, right? It's not delightful. Good design facilitation enhances that experience. It answers a human need, right? So design facilitation, again, is focusing on that end user, the person who's going to use that product and service. And if it is something that they need in their life, they're going to feel pretty good about it. And if you're able to facilitate that output to achieve that need or answer that problem, that's really, really powerful. And then, of course, it's functional and delightful, okay? So better designed solution does both things, right? It's beautiful, it's delightful to use or experience, but it also functions really well and does its job for you. So, just skip through that. Just in the words of Thomas Watson Jr., good design is good business. So I'm obviously an advocate for design because I'm a designer, but I am really passionate about it, and I really love what I do, but I really do see the impact that design is having in the area of business or technology. So for those of you who are designers, I would say, embrace facilitation if you can, and be part of that conversation and bring it to your team. And those of you who are working with designers, do the same for them. So cheers. Thank you. Thank
you. I have one question for you. So obviously facilitation is very important, and talk to people, talk to your peers, talk to your customers. And we've heard that before, talk to all stakeholders. Why is it so hard to talk to people?
Okay, so I think it's really interesting that you say talk. And I would say that good facilitation actually is less talking, more writing, more doing and drawing and creating and making things. So I think that is a big problem, right? There's too much conversation and talking, and everybody wants to say something because everybody has an opinion, and that's absolutely valid, right? But I think that runs a risk of us spending hours in just these long meetings, right, of having these conversations. And yes, you might be taking notes, but then you've got to go and you've got to create a list of to-dos, and you should set up another meeting to make sure that you follow up with that. But I find that with design facilitation, because it's generally an active kind of thing, you can still have a 1-hour workshop instead of a meeting. But again, you're kind of empowering everybody to share their ideas all at once, right? And then you're rapidly working through that with less talking and more writing and sharing. And as a facilitator, it's really important that you're able to handle those kind of team dynamics and challenges and notice when there is too much talking and there's not enough kind of productivity, I guess. I think it's kind of a challenge, but it takes some time, trial and error, but the payoff is there, and I see it. So I think if it is something that you're passionate about, that's one kind of takeaway that I would leave with, is that it's about less talking and more kind of doing. That answers your question?
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, Lara. I have a question. Listening to your design talk, the one thing that I didn't hear anything about was ethics in design, and also what the business model, how the business model can affect design. So you had Google as an example of a company that bought a design company. A lot of Google's design decisions are made not by traditionally people we would call designers, but due to their business model. So they decide that we need to gather all this data about people. And that's a core design decision. And I'm sure that such decisions are made at IBM as well. So what is your thoughts? I mean, what are your thoughts on ethics in design, as well as the role of the business model and the separation between design and what is decoration?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point. It's a great question. It's something that I struggle with sometimes as well. It's brilliant to see design being part of these global corporations, but I do also worry that, while I stand up here and I say that, design is about human-centered needs and solutions, absolutely, that's not always the case, right? The reality is, especially in the context of an enterprise or a corporation, design is only a piece of the whole, okay? So it's not the only voice, and many times it's not the loudest voice. Design is not at an executive level across these companies. I think if we got to that level, with the right designers there, maybe the future's a little bit brighter and more sustainable, right? But I think it's a big challenge, and it really comes down to the individual, right? Do people really give a shit? Excuse my language, but I mean, do people care enough about ethics and the people that they're designing for? And I would say that, you know, a lot of designers do and a lot of designers don't. So on an individual basis, my answer will be that yes, I care about that, and I'm very mindful in the work that I do and the people that I work with, to be really, really mindful about that. But I mean, the reality is that's not always the case, and the business needs to move on, right? And ultimately, if the business is not making a profit at the end of the day, their mandate is going to be whatever the executive or CEO or the decision makers, whatever they say needs to happen, right? And that is reality. But I think having design and that kind of user-centered mindset in the conversation, at least it's a starting point. And I think if we can kind of grow that and nurture that, I'm hopeful. At least I hope to be in that area of work. If that answers your question.
Oh, thank you, Lara. Thank you.